want to make sure that if you're considering this as a business model, you're coming into this eyes wide open, and we'll tell you how it really is.
But when you do get started, it's unknown, isn't it? You don't really know what to expect.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely vital to set the right expectations from the start with dropshipping.
But you shouldn't hold yourself back. You shouldn't think, what's realistic, what's not realistic. You set what's realistic in your own mind.
Okay, I can go and work on this business from Thailand or Bali or Dubai or Vietnam or wherever, and just have a laptop and just run the business from a cafe.
I remember when I first started, it was so unclear about what to expect, and it's a big question that we hear a lot of people ask.
Well, one of the best levers or strategies you can use immediately is just focus on optimizing. Welcome to the Dropship Unlocked Podcast. I'm Lewis Smith, the founder of Dropship Unlocked, and with me is our client success coach, James Eardley. Now, when we're not recording the podcast episodes, we're running our own e-commerce businesses and helping aspiring entrepreneurs launch their own high-ticket dropshipping businesses. Keen to build your own 6 or even 7-figure business? My book, The Home Turf Advantage, is your blueprint for launching a profitable online store. Grab your copy at htabook.com today and let's get you started. Now sit back, relax, and let's unlock your potential with the Dropship Unlocked podcast.
Today, we're diving into a crucial topic for anyone considering dropshipping. It's all about what is possible with dropshipping. Now, this is a question we hear a lot for people that are considering starting, Lewis. So today, we're going to talk about setting realistic goals, what success looks like, and really laying out the path and what people can expect when they get into a dropshipping venture today. So, Lewis, you have deep experience with this subject, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely vital to set the right expectations from the start with dropshipping because it can be incredibly rewarding. But obviously, it's important to know what you're getting into and certainly understand what's achievable as well. So looking forward to breaking that down for our listeners today. I know when I first started, I remember thinking dropshipping was potentially this kind of quick path to easy money. I was quite naive and early on in my journey, certainly of entrepreneurship. And I definitely had a shock when I went in with that mindset because hard work, dedication, graft that you have to put in, like with any business. And you create a business that means eventually you never have to trade your time for money by working a job again. So that's the kind of the balance, right? Yes, there is a lot of effort. The choice is you either work hard for someone else in your job from now until you retire, so through your entire career working incredibly hard, grafting away, or you work hard now for yourself, you front load the effort, you build a sustainable business to step back after 6, 7, 8 months. So I believe that truly understanding the journey ahead better prepares you for the hard work that's inevitably going to be required. So we want to make sure that if you're considering this as a business model, you're coming into this eyes wide open, and we'll tell you how it really is. In today's episode, we'll really break it down for you so that you fully understand what the road that lays ahead of you looks like.
Yeah, exactly. The clearer picture you have of what's ahead, the more likely you are to attack it and really be successful with knowing what to expect. I love the point you've mentioned already, which is similar to something I've heard recently, where when you start a business, it starts harder and then gets easier. Whereas if you continue in a 9-to-5 job, starting in a job starts easy and gets harder over time. Which I definitely agree with, which is something that we'll touch on, I'm sure, in this episode today. But we'll start off with the basics, Lewis. There's a lot of people that approach us that want to get started in dropshipping. They're looking to achieve financial and location freedom. But can you give us a breakdown of what dropshipping actually is and why does it appeal to people looking to achieve financial and location freedom?
Of course. So in its simplest form, dropshipping is just a retail fulfillment method where a store doesn't keep the products that it sells in stock. Instead, when we sell a product, we just purchase it from a third party and have it shipped directly from them over to the customer. So that means that we never have to handle the product directly. So when I first kind of found out about this, it was actually in the 4-Hour Workweek, Tim Ferriss's book. I remember reading about the concept of dropshipping, and I just remember the relief of thinking, so I can start a business and I don't have to invest huge amounts in inventory up front and order these like container loads worth of stock. Because as an inexperienced entrepreneur, that risk felt huge to me. What if I ordered it and there was a manufacturing mistake with a lot of the products? Or what if it didn't meet certain requirements? Or what if there was a quality issue? Or, there's so many, or what if it got damaged or I got scammed? Or there's so many worries with that. But I realized that with dropshipping, it would allow me to start with limited capital. I didn't have tens of thousands of pounds in savings. I worked in a decent job, but like many people, I'd probably only put aside the £5,000 to £6,000 that I had in disposable cash that I could use to do this. And so I'd built a bit of financial buffer, but I didn't have hundreds of thousands to pour into buying a load of stock and launching a brand from scratch. So I wanted to do it right the first time. I didn't want to put that money into stock that may never sell, or that may sell but be at a terrible margin, or, all of the different downsides that come with doing that. And aside from the risk of doing that, the flexibility of running my business without having to hold any stock was also a huge game changer for me, because the flexibility meant that I could do it from anywhere in the world. So yes, there's a lot less risk because I'm not putting money into stock, but it also means I don't actually have to worry or think about stock. So the physical space that I save, not having to have a warehouse or clutter my house with goods, but also the headspace that I save mentally by knowing that, okay, I can go and work on this business from Thailand or Bali or Dubai or Vietnam or wherever, and just have a laptop and just run the business from a cafe with a coffee, really low overheads, but also low mental strain, because I have, my brain is not cluttered with all these thoughts of, where's the product? How's the inventory going to work? Where's the third party fulfillment center? And it just becomes this kind of really cluttered start to business. And I think as an entrepreneur just starting out, you want to keep it simple. You think of this business model like managing an online catalog. Do you remember the Argos catalog, right? That you see and you walk past Argos and they've still got it in there and it's all laminated now. But imagine you're running an online version of that and customers browse them and then they buy them. And when they buy the products, your supplier handles the rest, much like Argos do in many cases. They're often drop shipping with many of their suppliers as well. So our model of the home turf advantage, unlike traditional drop shipping that you might have heard a lot of bad press about, the kind of AliExpress cheap products from Temu and China and stuff, our model involves higher priced items that get delivered from UK distributors, so you can offer next day delivery to your customers, which means really simple business model, much fewer sales, higher profit per sale, and happy customers because they get their products, they're good quality, they're nice and fast. So I think the main lesson that I took from doing all of this and kind of figuring out the business model I wanted to go down was that choosing the right model and the right suppliers is one of the most critical factors to achieving the results that you want in business with the lowest stress possible. And that's something that we guide you through step by step inside our masterclass program. We help you navigate all those choices effectively, give you the personalized guidance that you need on our Q&A calls that we help with, and really just help you get set up for success right from the start.
And that's right, because ultimately there's going to be work put in, which you made clear. But if you choose the right model, and for the reasons that you've explained, you are putting yourself on the right path towards success. If time, location, and financial freedom is your goal, but it's key that obviously dropshipping comes with so many key terms and reasons why we would get into dropshipping, but as long as you adapt it into the type of dropshipping that we see working well now, not necessarily the most common form of dropshipping that you might come across when you first start researching. So I think people can understand, I certainly understood when I was looking at it, why dropshipping made so much sense. But when you do get started, it's unknown, isn't it? You don't really know what to expect. So can we set some goals? Can we sort of set out for people what they should expect when they're starting out in dropshipping?
Of course, it's difficult because everybody's journey and pace and hunger for success will be different, and even their definition of success will be different. So if you're listening to this and thinking that you need to replace your income and maybe your income's only $2,000 or $3,000 a month, that'll be very different to someone's definition of success who's making £15,000 per month already from their job, and that's a different income to have to replace. So success will be different for each party. But I think to put it tactically, the first few months involves setting up your store, understanding your niche, getting to grips with the market that you're in, and then running your first ads. That's kind of the basics. That's the front loading we talked about, building the foundations of your business. I remember the first few months in my business were all about learning and just testing different strategies. It's kind of like you're going back to school. You're just absorbing everything again like a sponge, except it's fun because you're thinking, this is building my future. The skills I'm learning here are going to pay my bills for many years to come. So that initial phase is kind of filled with these small victories, because you've got to celebrate them as you go. It's like you sign your first supplier. Amazing. Like, go and celebrate. You set your ads live. Big milestone. Made your first sale. That's huge. Post about that in our community if you're part of it. Making the first 10K month, or first 50K, or first 100K. Like, these are all great milestones that you've got to mark the occasion of. And I know they all certainly kept me motivated. But it's kind of like learning a new language. When you first join, when at first it just feels foreign. There's all these new terms, especially if you haven't had much experience with e-commerce before. But eventually, by being around the right people, you know how they say the best way to learn a language is just move to that country and immerse yourself in that culture. After a while, you start to pick it up, and eventually you become fluent. We had a member in our program recently, Mikey, post the other day that made me laugh. And he was saying a few weeks ago he didn't understand any of this stuff. And suddenly he's speaking to his friends about top of funnel and conversion rates and AOV and abandoned cart sequences. And it's suddenly like he's learned to speak the language of e-commerce. So I think you've got to accept that when you first start, that won't be, it won't come naturally. It doesn't to anyone, but you'll pick it up over time. And the best method for that is just immersion. Get around a community of other people speaking about it. The other expectation that I want to make sure is very transparent here is that if you're running a serious business, you have to expect to invest both time and money initially. So you treat it as a serious business, and it will pay you as a serious business. It's not some get-rich-quick scheme. Like, we could not be more clear about that. You got to aim for those small wins initially, like you make your first sale, or you make your first £1,000, or I don't know. It's just more of a marathon than a sprint. You've got to just mark those milestones as you go. And I think if you set achievable enough milestones along the way, that helps keep you motivated, because you haven't got to delay the gratification until you're like, okay, I've done it. I've replaced my 15 grand a month salary, or whatever like the success milestone for you is. You can say, I made my first sale today. That's cool. Like, maybe you only made £400 in profit, but still that's cool. Maybe that's what you would have made if you gone into your old job. So I think it's just doing that. That's exactly what we've baked into our masterclass, by the way. We make sure that each of these milestones are kind of items that you can check off in a very step-by-step, sequential, bite-sized process, because it can feel overwhelming if you're just trying to piece this together. We put this in a very clear success path so that you kind of tick these things off individually. As you go, you hit these targets efficiently, and it just keeps up your momentum. So eventually you get to the point where you are hitting the bigger goals, but you've kind of had fun along the journey as well, if that makes sense.
It does, yeah. It's so key to have fun and enjoy the journey along the way, because that's what's keep you motivated. So you're not just thinking about your big goals that you've got to like replace your salary. You just look at the incremental steps that you're taking, the wins along the way, and you just enjoy them the whole way. And as you say, I was fortunate to be part of the masterclass program. And so I was clearly shown that it was important to keep celebrating these wins all along the way, because it means you just keep pushing on to the next one and you get that momentum that builds. So I remember clearly when I came in, I had to be so open-minded, because I was learning things that I'd never come across before. I had no experience of e-commerce, no experience of dropshipping, didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what I didn't know as well. I was learning things that I never thought I'd need to learn. But I was open-minded, I was willing to learn, understood that I was going to invest time, understood I was going to invest some money to get started. And then with that mindset, I was able to just be a sponge, take it all in, and then enjoy all of the wins along the way. I remember even like when I had my business email address signed up, I'd pat myself on the back, celebrate, because it was a win along the way. Setting up your phone number, seeing your store come live on your website for the first time, signing your first supplier. It's a great feeling. And these are all steps on the way to those big goals that you have of time, location, freedom. And it makes the whole thing enjoyable and motivating to keep pushing on. Like, defining success is difficult, as you say, because it's going to be individual and difficult and different for everyone, for people to define. What do you think success looks like in the dropshipping world? Can you give us some milestones and realistic milestones that people should be aiming for?
Yeah, of course. I'll try my best. So I think success in dropshipping can be measured in stages, essentially, from the initial sales that you make through to like scaling up your operations, building out a team, automating processes. So I guess to break it down, reaching my first consistent daily sales was a huge milestone. Obviously, your first sale is this amazing feeling. You never forget where you are, and the sound of Shopify going cha-ching, and you're like, I've just made £500 or whatever. But I think that's great. But then when you start making consistent daily sales, then you realize like, oh, wow, we've got momentum here. Like I've built a business, I built something real that's paying me every day for work that I did 6 months ago. Like that is the definition of front loading the work. So that's cool. And I think I felt like I'd really found my footing when you're making like £800 to £900 per day, because you're making maybe like a sale every day. Then suddenly you hit the next tier and it's like £2,000 to £3,000 per day. And then that equates to like, okay, now I'm making £1,000 a day. Suddenly I'm at 30K per month. And then making 3 sales per day, I'm at 100,000 per month. And it kind of just happens like that. And it sometimes very quickly, but often it's a little more gradual, scales up, and you're at the point where you're making multiple sales per day, you're optimizing your operations, and then suddenly you have enough profit in the business to start looking at hiring a team, and then you kind of become the like conductor of the orchestra. Your job's not to get in and like answer customer service emails or tweak things on your site. Your job is to find the right people who can do those things. Like they say in Dan Sullivan's book, it's who, not how, you're looking for here. Who are the people I can put in place to help me with the high leverage activities that I know need doing, but that there are people out there who are far more skilled at me than doing. And it's having the humility to admit that, and not being too proud and stubborn and saying, I'm going to do it all myself. I think that's the key to really unlock scale in a business like this. You know, it's a bit like if you're writing a book about your e-commerce journey, you're the main character, you're scribbling down notes every day. Every page that you write in your book is progress towards your final story that eventually is the book of your e-commerce journey that you publish, whether that's hitting your first 10K month or 20K months or 30K months. Like these are all different pages of your journey as you go. So hopefully that breaks it down a little bit into kind of those chunks and those milestones. I think it's good to have both short-term goals, like, for example, achieving your first sale or reaching a consistent daily sales number, or maybe it's like breaking even on ad spend, for example. Maybe you start off and you're spending a bit too much on ads, and then you kind of bring it back and you're like, oh, I'm now breaking even. Now I've just got to start to, tweak the ads and tweak my margins maybe and start making a lot more profit. And then balancing those short-term goals with long-term goals as well. So that might be scaling up or optimizing operations or saying, I want to build a real brand. Maybe one of your long-term goals coming into this, which is a great goal to have, is exiting your business. Maybe it's saying, my goal from this is to build something that in 2-3 years, I want to sell my business. I know a friend of mine has literally yesterday just closed on the sale of their online business, and it was for a 36 times monthly multiple of the profit that they were making per month. So that's 36 times the average monthly net profit that the business was making. An investor bought the business because they can do lots more with it and get it much higher, right? And they'll make their money back within 36 months if they don't do anything to it. So even quite a good investment for them. But if you think about it, I think they were making like 13,000 net profit per month with the business. So they've just sold that business for like, I think it's like $500,000, just under $500,000. So that's an amazing goal to come into, and is totally possible with this kind of business model as well. Especially if you come into it with that as your goal from the outset, because you can go in thinking, everything I set up, I want standard operating procedures for. I want a very clear list of actions so that I'm not the business. The business is a set of processes, it's relationships with suppliers, it's, spreadsheets, automations, it's things that can be sold as a bundled unit and transferred over to an investor or a buyer later, where you say, okay, that business is yours. It runs like clockwork. The team can come with the business. I can you kind of sell it as a package. And so the team keep their jobs and remain employed. And yeah, I think that for some people is the goal. For other people, it might just be they want to keep their business as a cash flow business that pays their lifestyle as they travel the world or go through retirement or go through university or whatever that might be. So I know when I was first starting out, I was just focusing on sustainable growth, making sure customers were satisfied, like ticking the basics, the foundations, because once you have those things in place, you can really build success compounded from there. And these are all things, by the way, we guide you through inside the masterclass. So we really help you build that solid foundation, set up the processes, so you're setting yourself up for long-term success with your brand. And eventually you have a nice saleable asset, something you could cash out 36 months worth of profit upfront in one lump sum transaction. You can't do that with a job, right?
Exactly. There's no way you'd be able to sell your job for that level of money. Yeah, we're building assets here for the long term. And that's why it's something we put work into to get to that stage. But you shouldn't hold yourself back. You shouldn't think, oh, what's realistic, what's not realistic. You set what's realistic in your own mind. And that's why we're setting you these long-term targets to have, because they're absolutely possible with an e-commerce business. Something I think is useful to shout out now as well is for those of you who are looking to delve deeper about the initial phase initially. So like the first 90 days. And we've done a episode that's specifically about that, which is episode 59 of the Dropship Unlocked podcast to queue up after this one. And that is called Navigating the First 90 Days Dropshipping. So we really go into detail about what that looks like. But yeah, I think breaking up into short-term goals and long-term goals is important because, I mean, the success you've seen, Lewis, with dropshipping, you've done 5 million in sales. Jared, who's been on the podcast a couple of times, has done 4 million in sales. I've done £1 million in sales myself. We've got so many other success stories, Ian, Suraj. I'm forgetting a lot of people that are on the YouTube channel that people can check out as well. But these goals are all being achieved by people that came into it with no dropshipping experience beforehand. So it does show what's possible. But when they produce these results, we're not suggesting that they're done in the short term. They're not done within a month or 2 months of starting these businesses. There's short-term goals. You set up, you decide that you're going to make a first sale within the first couple of months. Amazing. Once you hit that, you can scale to the really big goals. And you can ultimately set what's realistic as long as you put the work in to get there. So strategies then for people that are keen, ready to go, hungry to get to these big goals that people are achieving all the time. What strategies should people be looking to implement to influence their level of success?
Well, one of the best levers or strategies you can use immediately is just focus on optimizing and scaling your profitable paid ad campaigns. That is the shortcut to getting a flood of sales quickly. If you can just switch on the tap of traffic, i.e. paid ads, that can really take things to the next level. I found that honing my ad campaigns, when you do it right, it is just like turning on a tap. If I were to turn off all my ad campaigns right now, yes, we'd have a trickle through of organic traffic coming through, but the way of doing it profitably and being able to control your scale is to make sure that you can run ads profitably, not just spend money and hope, but know that for every ad you run, for every campaign you run, you're making sales at your target return on ad spend or lower, or higher, sorry, and so that you're making a sale at a lower acquisition cost in ad spend than the profit that you bring in. And at that point, you're making profit on every single sale that comes in. So if it costs me £100 to make a sale and I make £600 in profit on that product sale, I've now made £500 net, and I could do that all day long and keep spending £100 to make those sales on ads. That's one of the benefits with high ticket dropshipping using the home turf advantage model. So I think that's definitely one. Another would be investing in great customer service early on. That can help you build a loyal customer base, but also it just pays for itself so quickly. It's such a great return on investment. People think, oh, I'm not ready to hire a virtual assistant at this stage. And I'm thinking sometimes, I think you're not ready not to, because if you can bring someone in who answers every call that comes into the business, who answers every email, who answers every live chat request that comes in, who calls back voicemails, who calls back abandoned carts, people who didn't complete the checkout. If they make 2 or 3 sales extra per month, they've probably made you a profit because they'll have paid for their salary plus more. And so it's, not to mention the headspace that it frees you up as well as an entrepreneur, because you're then not having to do all of those things, which means you can focus on being a business owner, not kind of wearing all of the hats in the business and working in the business. So that's definitely one. I think having a flow of paid traffic coming in and great customer service is like you're setting up a storefront on a really busy street, and you've got a great team of store attendants in the store helping people come in. So not only have you got traffic coming in, but they're also having a great experience. It's those two things, if you put it into the physical world, that you're achieving by doing that. The customer service in our business, I think of it like the glue that holds the business together. It just keeps everything running smoothly. I try and have my team provide amazing customer experience and customer service to build loyalty, because then customers want to come back, but also they want to recommend others. That word of mouth to family, to friends, they'll just go and post about you on social media if they've had an incredible experience. So that's another one. And then also I'd be making sure that I'm staying updated with industry trends and just continually honing and improving my skills as an entrepreneur. I want to always be learning. I'm never done. If I'm not learning, I feel like I'm decaying. My skills are becoming outdated. So keeping in a community where I'm constantly able to absorb new lessons, new tactics, like I would do that, and I would see that as my competitive advantage. And I do that. And of course, that's exactly the reason why we put together the Dropship Unlocked Launchpad as well. That's just a way for those people who are in the position where we first started. They're just starting out and they want to get around other like-minded entrepreneurs, but they need somewhere to congregate, to be able to talk to others, share ideas, learn about the latest tactics at the forefront of e-commerce, get that step-by-step guidance, and then keep up to date with what's working now and just get their business off the ground without the expensive and time-consuming guesswork, really to keep them ahead of the curve.
Yeah, that's a brilliant strategy. I mean, being around a community, finding people that have already succeeded is always going to be a shortcut to success. So whatever your goals are, getting around other people that have achieved already, they'll help you to set your expectations. They'll help to push you in the right direction. And it really is a hack, I think, to get into success more quickly. So this has been incredibly insightful, Lewis. Thanks for sharing your story again and getting us to understand what we can expect. I remember when I first started, it was so unclear about what to expect. And it's a big question that we hear a lot of people ask. So by laying out what people have achieved, the mindset to go in with, and also the strategies, there's been loads for people to get their teeth stuck into and reach the goals that we've achieved quicker and beat us to it. So have you got any final thoughts then for listeners who are inspired and thinking about getting started soon?
Yeah, certainly. I think the first thing would be just to start with educating yourself thoroughly. You don't know what you don't know in business, and sometimes that can be our biggest downfall. I know our episode 26 of the Dropship Unlocked podcast, where we covered the concept of high-ticket dropshipping in real detail, is a great one to listen to. So yeah, episode 26, I'd check out. And then, as I said, engage with communities, possibly join a community like ours. Consider mentorship to avoid those common and expensive and time-consuming pitfalls. Remember as well, success is not overnight. It's a result of consistent effort, learning from failures, picking a proven model to follow, and just making sure that you treat the journey along the way as part of the reward. And if you're looking to apply these strategies effectively, htabook.com is a great place to start. By picking up a copy of my book, you'll also get to jump into our Dropship Unlocked Launchpad community, where our community are all gathered together. We're all there to help you, and we host courses in there. We support you. We can help you on Q&A calls and really help you get your business launched.
Yeah, thank you, Lewis. I think if people are worried or unsure about what to expect from starting dropshipping, reading a step-by-step book that they can get at htabook.com, your book, The Home Serve Advantage, it lays it all out. So it takes away the guesswork, and you can really understand what the comprehensive strategy is that you put in place, so they know exactly how to get to success. Enjoying the podcast? We'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment or a review, and we might just feature it on an upcoming episode. Also, for detailed show notes and resources, head to dropshipunlocked.com/podcast.
If you found value from any episode of this podcast, please take just 10 seconds to leave us a quick 5-star review on your podcast app of choice. It helps us more than you could imagine, and who knows, you might just hear your comments on the show. Thanks for being part of our community. Your support helps us keep delivering a new episode every week.
Okay, now it's time to answer a question that we've had in from a listener. And remember, if you have a question that you'd like to ask to myself and Lewis, all you need to do is leave a comment beneath the YouTube video version of this episode. Now this week, the question has come in from Dan Rinter, 7251. And Dan has asked a question similar to what we've been talking about today, and it shows how popular this question is. So Lewis, Dan has asked, I'm new to dropshipping and I'm trying to set realistic goals. What kind of success should I expect in my first year with high-ticket dropshipping in the UK?
Thank you for your question, Dan. And yeah, hopefully we've covered a little bit of that in today's episode as well. But in answer to that, the initial months that you start out will involve a steep learning curve. So you're going to be setting up your store. You've got to understand your niche. You've got to start running ads, signing your suppliers, building your site. And I remember those early days vividly. I was spending late nights tweaking my store. I'm learning from every mistake. I'm, hoping that after a night of ad spend and setting my ads live that there's going to be sales there in the morning. I'm crossing my fingers, but often there weren't in those initial days. And it was nerve-wracking, it was worrying. And I quickly learned that the speed of my results and how high I could achieve depended on the supports that I had and the tactical knowledge that I had as well. Remember, we talked about applying the right model and not just going into it blindly. So if you're in a program, you're much more likely to see fast results because you're not having to guess at every single step. And there will be many, many steps along the way. So it's exactly why I created the masterclass. The more time you can commit to growing your business, the faster you're going to see results as well. So just make sure that you have got that time carved out to really give it your all in that time. At first, it might be evenings, weekends, but eventually, as you start to see it replace your salary, perhaps you start to take a couple of weeks of holiday, work on it during that time, and then eventually you can go full time. After the first few months of getting everything in place, you should start to see some steady growth, start getting some consistent sales and improving your marketing strategies as you go. All of this, by the way, I have to caveat by saying you have to take action. You know, the business won't just build itself. We'll lay out the strategies for you, but you very much need to apply those strategies and ask when you get stuck. Like, that's the benefit of being surrounded by hundreds of other like-minded entrepreneurs who can help you at every stage. I know you wanted a realistic goal though, Dan, so very difficult to say, but I'd say something like anywhere between £10,000 to £50,000 in monthly revenue by the end of your first year, you'd be in a really good place. You know, you'd have taken it seriously. You've followed the process. You're selling high ticket products. Maybe you're averaging just over a sale per day. And the idea of the Dropship Unlocked Masterclass is designed to fast track your progress and help you achieve those milestones much, much earlier than a year in. We've laid it out as a 6-week program, in fact. So if you've got 6 weeks of time and you can really go all in, you know, you can see if you can beat the record for getting up and running in the fastest time possible. But remember, slow and steady wins the race. You want to get it right. You don't want to rush the foundations of your business. And yeah, we continue working with you for the full 12 months. So you've got plenty of time to get up to that point.
Perfect. Yeah, and that covers that question perfectly. Thank you, Dan. And just to come in on that as well, Lewis, the expectations you set there for Dan is exactly what I found. Put a lot of work in, made a lot of goals I had to work on weekends and evenings initially. But with the hard work, it really paid off. And so by the end of the first year, I'd done £250,000 in sales, which, as you say, was somewhere between 10 and 50K a month within the first year. But yeah, the action had to be put in. So thank you for your answer there, Lewis. We're now going to answer a review, or read out a review rather, for the podcast. So a big thank you to Bailey899 for sharing your thoughts through an Apple podcast review. So Bailey899 said, "Inspirational. So grateful that I stumbled across this podcast. Your past situations resonate with my current, and you have made me take the leap into becoming an entrepreneur, and I'm so excited about life again. Thank you."
Wow, amazing. That's really powerful to hear. Thank you for the review, Bailey. And it's just, I find it funny, the power of a podcast and how we can share our experiences and our stories, and someone out there somewhere resonates with that and thinks that's the situation I'm in right now, while they're listening to it in their car or in the gym or the way to work or whatever. And that, I mean, it's almost like being able to talk to our former selves in the past and be like, hey, it's you from the future. And life is good, by the way. Here's the path to take. And I don't know, I just find it fascinating that the power of podcast technology is amazing. So thanks very much for the review, Bailey. Really glad to hear that you've been enjoying the podcast and that you're inspired by it. And your review means a lot to us. Thank you. Now, it's reviews like Bailey's that keep us motivated to share our best insights. So if you're finding any value in this podcast, consider passing it on to a friend or a colleague who might benefit from this as well. And if you can think of someone in your network who's been curious about perhaps starting their own business, perhaps sharing this episode with them could be the push that they need to get started.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Dropship Unlocked podcast. We hope you're walking away with insights and inspiration.
To kickstart your e-commerce journey, grab a copy of my book, The Home Turf Advantage, at htabook.com. It's a distilled guide based on real experience to help you build your e-commerce venture.
Don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more strategies and success stories. And if you like what you heard, a 5-star review would mean the world to us, and you might just get a shout out on an upcoming episode.
And finally, thank you for deciding to spend your time with us today. We can't wait to bring you more insights on the next episode of the Dropship Unlocked podcast.